Hello everyone and welcome back to the 20 and 20 Ruby on Rails tutorial series. This is week 2, part 3, I think. Today we're going to be covering styling the front end, so we're going to add in the CSS to make the home page and the menu page and stuff like that look good. We're also going to actually be adding the menu page and its controller. We're going to add the products to the menu, so you can scroll through the menu and see, okay, this pizza costs $11, here's the ingredients, and if you want, you could even display if it's gluten-free or whatever. And then we'll be sort of preparing for the next part. So this part is going to be creating the products, or at least showing the products on the menu page, navigating and adding the background images that we Photoshop the blur into. And the next part will cover creating the categories and the searching based on whether stuff is gluten-free or dairy-free or whatever. Once we have those two set up, we can then move on to creating the shopping cart with the orders. Once we create the shopping cart with the orders, we'll move on to doing a striped checkout, and I'll get you guys as far as I can. I still don't have my account set up for that, but hopefully I'll manage to work it out. Once we have the striped checkout, we'll then move on to deploying onto a DigitalOcean server. And for that, I did find an affiliate link that we can use, which will give you guys, I think, a 60-day $100 credit for DigitalOcean or something to that effect, so you can follow along for free if you just make a new account. So that's basically the plan moving forward. I know it's kind of adjusting, but that's sort of the problem with doing a project like this over the scope of 1 week and changing stuff based on conversations you have. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's jump into some code.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take a look at what I'm hoping to have accomplished by the end of this video. So before we initially changed all of our requirements, I was actually working on this version of the website, which was going to be largely the fulfillment of the initial requirements. So you have a home page, the menu, the catering, more information, and customer reviews. I managed to get the images set up. I put in the text just as a credit for the video so that people know where to get these pictures from. I also created the menu page. So you'll see here you have the blurred image in the background, the text, and some items on the menu. And then you can scroll down and the background persists. And then as far as catering and more information and customer reviews goes, I didn't have those done. They just had an image set up. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is we're going to be setting up something similar to this. It's just going to be, the full features instead of this 10-minute app that I have here. But the other thing you might have noticed is when I was moving between pages, they were stuttering quite a bit because of how big these pictures are. But if I now come through here and I click through, you'll see that they're instantly popping in. And the reason is we actually cache the images here once we do the initial load. So you get the first hit, because I just booted up the server, but subsequent visits will have these cached. So we're just going to go ahead and take a look at how to set this all up. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll take a look at where we left off last time with the app. So we have the home page, the menu page doesn't exist. We have a catering page, we have more info, and then we have customer reviews, which also doesn't exist. The first thing, I do have a note here. I realized as I was trying to set up the week 2 episode that our seed file was wrong. So if we come into the db seeds file, we need to change this catering _ item to just be catering is true. We can then save this, and I'm just going to do a Rails db : drop and Rails db : migrate and Rails db : seed and Rails s. So I'll just full screen this so you can see this full command here, and then we'll just run this. So all I'm doing here is we're dropping the database, then we're migrating, then we're seeding, and then we're restarting the server. And if you have the double ampersands in here, it'll run one command after the other after the other. So while that's running, we can close the seed file for now, I guess. And let's actually go to, let's make the menu page because we left that off last time. So if we come up here to the views, pages, we're missing a couple of these links. We'll do the customer reviews later, but as far as the actual pages for the menu goes, we're not going to create it in the pages file. We're going to create our own controller for this. Okay, so we're going to come into our console and we're just going to say Rails G controller menu, and we're going to give it an action of index. Now let's come into our layouts links and let's change the link for the menu to be the menu path. And then we're going to have to come into config and routes.rb, and we're going to say get, and instead of menu/index, we're just going to say get menu to, and then we'll say menu index, and we'll save that. Okay, and then let's come over to our terminal and let's say Rails S and then -d, which should run this as a, it'll run it in the background of our terminal. If you do need to get the process ID, by the way, you can type psaux and then grep puma. You'll see your two process IDs here. Let me just full screen this. You want this one. You do not want the one that says color auto. And the important thing here is this number. So let's say you want to kill the server. You just type kill 7161. And then if I run psaux again, you'll see that 7161 is no longer here. But we'll go ahead and we'll run this, and it should let the server run in the background so we can still use our terminal if we need to. Okay, so now we can hopefully go to the menu page, and there is the menu page. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do, and I'm sort of combining two projects here as I'm doing this, so we might make some mistakes here. I say I might make some mistakes here, but you know what I mean. We're going to start with a div with a class of menu-container. And then inside of this, we're going to do a row. And then inside of this, we're going to do a 3 do loop. And then we're going to say at items.each do item. And then we're going to do a div with a class of column4. And then inside of the column4, we'll do a h5, which has the item.name. And then we'll close off the h5. We'll then come down below the h5, we'll do a p tag, and we'll say this is the item.description, and then we'll close the p tag. And I'm realizing right now that this should not be at items. I think this should be at products. And then we should be doing product here. Again, I'm trying to combine the original idea for the episode or for the project series with the new idea, so I got some of my variables mixed up here. We have our product name, product description, and then below the product description, we're also going to have a span. And then inside the span, it says product.price. And then we have product.catering. If it's catering, then we say available for catering, else empty string. And then after this, we have the div, and then we do an end, and then we do another end, and then I'll save this, and my formatter should clean up most of this, and I'll just clean up the rest here. So that looks good. Let's put a space right here. And the rest of this looks okay. So let's get rid of this and get rid of this. Okay, so now we have to come in and actually do this the menu controller here, because we have these products and stuff. So let me come over to my menu controller here, and we'll come over to this one on this screen. So we'll go into the app controllers menu controller, and then inside of the index, all we need to do is say at products is equal to product.all. And then we need, we don't have order items, so we can just leave this right here for now. Because we're not implementing the shopping cart in this episode. So if I now come over and refresh the page, we should see that we do in fact have these things like being created with the Bootstrap container here. So it's 3 per row basically, but we don't have the styling yet. So let's come in and let's add in all of the styling that I had here. So I think for this we'll come into assets, style sheets, and I think pages.scss. Okay, so for this, in my original application, I did have this in pages.scss. We're going to put it in pages.scss for now, but it might get moved into menu, and I might do like a bonus episode where I clean up the styling a bit. So to start, I'm setting the font family. Setting the font family for the application, and I'm setting it to Open Sans Serif. Okay, which means that we do need to come into our layouts application.html.erb, and we need to add in the Open Sans font. And so you guys can see how to do that. If you go to Google and you search for Google fonts, you'll see this website right here, fonts.google.com. And let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see all of this. So you can search for fonts. In this case, I'm going to search for Open Sans, which is this one right here. You can hit the plus, font selected. And then if you click on the bar again, you'll see that you have the option to embed it or to customize it. We're just going to hit embed. And we have this link href blah, blah, blah style sheet. You copy that, which is step 1. And then you paste this into the head of your application.html.erb file. You hit save. And then the second step is you add in the font family, which is the next thing they tell you. So in specifying CSS, they say put it in as a font family, which we did inside of our pages.scss. So now if we come back to our application and I refresh, hopefully there will be a noticeable change here. So let me scroll in because I really only get to do this once unless I come over here and delete it. So let's refresh. And there you can see the font changed a little bit. So that's really not like a huge substantial change, but it is, it's, you know, the little things, right? Okay, so let's start with the page hyphen container. We're going to give this a margin of 0 pixels, a padding of 0 pixels, and a max width of 100%. Next thing we do is we set the title card, which is basically the thing that the title sits in. And we give the title card a background hyphen color colon of 111. And now that I'm doing colors, I'm actually going to talk about this. I try to cover some of the styling things in these videos. Again, I'm not an expert, but one thing that I did learn is that you can come to Google and you can look for like a CSS color theme, and you want to search for coolers. I don't remember what it is, if it's coolers. Coolers.co. So coolors.co. And this is a brilliant tool. If you click start the generator, and the page actually loads, you'll see here that you have 5 colors available. So you can actually, let's say you really like this color right here, and you want a theme that matches this to be like account wide. So you click on it, which changes this to be the lock. And then if you hit space, it cycles through the other colors. So maybe you also like this color and this color. You can cycle through it until you find a few more colors that you like. So maybe you also like this one and you want something bright. And then here's your theme. But maybe like this one's a little bit too bright. So you can come up here and adjust it just a little bit. And you'll now have all of your hex values down here. So this is sort of how I design my applications when I'm taking them a little bit more seriously and I'm not just doing them in a hacky way. I did try to use some colors here that were a little bit thematic, but again, it's black and white mostly. So, you know, your mileage will vary based on how you use this coolers.co. And I have a link to this in the description so you can just click on the link and you don't have to find it yourself, assuming I remember to do that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say title hyphen text. And we'll expand that. For this, we have a color of FFF, which is white. And if you're in Visual Studio Code and you just click on here, you can actually adjust everything inside of Visual Studio Code with this color picker, so you don't have to know your numbers. But of course, it'll then switch to RGB. And if you want to change the opacity, you can make this RGB A, I think, right? And then you can add in a 4th value, which is the opacity or something to that effect. But for now, we're going to leave it as FFF. We want a text align of center. We want a font size of 10 EM. And we want a margin of 0. Next, we have the .home-page. We want a width of 100 VW, which is 100 viewport width, I believe. We want a height of 100 VH, which is the viewport height. And then we want our background image, which we don't have right now. So we'll just say background hyphen image URL, and we'll just give this like /exterior.png, and we'll add this in a minute. And then we want a background hyphen size of 100%, 100%. I'm sure that this CSS is not efficient or even proper. I'm not a whiz with CSS. I usually get some consultation for this stage, but I figured what I can do here is at least make it look how you would expect, and those of you that are planning on doing this, you'll probably be better at it than I am anyways. So the first thing we'll do for the menu page is we'll say width of 100%, height of 100%. We want a background hyphen image with, oops, I misspelled that. Background hyphen image with a URL of /menu.png. And then we want a background hyphen repeat, no hyphen repeat, and a background hyphen attachment of fixed. So if we do all this and then I scroll back out a little bit and I full screen and I refresh, you can see here that the Frank's Foods right here is already working. And if we come to the home page and then come back to the menu, it looks like I'm still missing the menu container, so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But yeah, Frank's Foods is right here. And again, we'll clean up some of the styling later. This was just a basic idea of what I was looking for here. For this one, we're also going to do a box shadow. So once again, I'll show you guys the box shadow generator. So if you come to Google and you just search for box shadow CSS, CSS generator, which is the second result there, but this way it's the first. You click on it, you can generate a box shadow and you'll get the box shadow in here. Or you can look for like drop shadow, etc. And is it not this one? Is it this one? The CSS-matic one? Yeah. And you can grab this one and you can say, you know, we want like a minimal negative or +2 pixel, +2 pixel. We want the container to, I don't know, be like white, but the shadow to be a little bit blacky, and etc. And then you just grab all of this and you come over to your CSS and you just paste it in, and that will give you the desired results. Now I have my own over here, and I'll walk you guys through it as after I paste this in. So basically we want a box shadow with 2 pixels all the way top, right, bottom, and then 0 pixels on the left. And then it has an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, which is full black. And the last value, like we talked about before, is the opacity, and we set it to 75. The next thing we do is we give this a background hyphen color of FFF, a width of 100%, and a padding of 2EM. And let's just go ahead and let's throw the rest of these in here so we can have these out of the way. The next thing we have is for the catering hyphen page, which has a width of 100 VW, a height of 100 VH, a background hyphen image, URL is /catering.png, a background hyphen size of 100%, and that does it for the catering page. And then we have something similar for the rest of these. So really, like, this is way too much copying and pasting of code. You should have something like a, like a page class. And then inside of this, you say like the width is 100 VW, the height is 100 VH, and then like a dot catering is something like the background image. So we'll just grab this one. And then, you have like the next one. So dot reviews, and then you paste this in and you switch this to reviews, just so that, you're not repeating this entire block every time. But we're just going to do it this way for now. I'll probably come back and clean this up at some point. So that's the catering page. We also have an info page and we have a reviews page. So let's go ahead and let's just copy this catering page twice. So once and twice. This is going to be the info page. Info page. And this is going to be the reviews page. So for this one, we'll say info.png. And this will be reviews.png. And then we have the link container. So we can come down here and we can say dot link hyphen container. And this is where all of our links are going to live in the top left. We'll say padding hyphen left of 1 EM, padding hyphen top of 0.25 EM. It'll have a dot link of a color FFF. Oops. It'll have a dot active of color RGBA, and we want 255, 255, 255, 0.75. And then it'll have a dot link colon active, which will be color RGBA 255, 255, 255, 0.75. I think that's it for the styling. So now let's move this over here and come back to our application and refresh. And let me full screen it. So now the links are up here. The text is just white, so you can't see it right now. This does have the drop shadow. So, it looks a little bit more like a real page. You can see here that the shadow does make this seem a little bit off. So technically we should give like this title card a drop shadow as well, so it kind of matches or something. So if we just grab the drop shadow, we can actually just do that real fast. So let's grab this from the menu container and come up to the title card and do this. And if we refresh the page, hopefully this will fix itself. Yeah, so now it looks a little bit more connected over here. Okay, learn something new every day. Let's zoom back out over here and let's fix this whole link situation. So let's come to the home page. The text is, or the links are still here, but now we want to actually add this background image. So if you'll recall, when we went to the home page, we had an image called exterior.png. Now you're going to have a few options for this section. The first is if I come up here and I close some of these windows. The first is you can come to the GitHub repository for this project. Oops. github.com/deanout/20in20. And if you come up to supplemental assets, week 2, I will have some links here for all of these images. So you just download the images by the name. And actually, you know what? Let's just see if I can do that right now. Okay. And now if we come into supplemental assets, week 2, you'll see that we have all of the images here. So that is your first option. Just come into the GitHub and grab the pictures from here and make sure you star the repository so that when I put this on a resume, people are like, wow, he's so popular. But seriously, your second option is far more desirable because it'll give you some more hands-on experience. Because again, the point of this isn't just to copy what I'm doing, it's to learn how I'm doing it. So if you come to unsplash.com, you have completely 100% royalty-free images. This is hands down the best website on the face of the planet. I love these people. This video is not sponsored, by the way. But you can come here and you can search. So we'll say restaurant exterior. It'll give you a whole bunch of images, and these are super high quality. I mean, like you can see the reflections in this picture. It's insane. So, shout out to these people. So what I did was I went through here and I grabbed a whole bunch of these pictures. And once I had the pictures, I'm going to show you one of the pictures here in Photoshop. So I grabbed this picture, I dragged it over here, and let me see if I can find it. So I have the person's name that made this. So if you hit download, your image will be here, and they'll also give you the thing to say thanks. So you can just hit copy. And then we can come over to Photoshop, and we can just go through this Photoshop crash course real fast, which this is about the extent of my knowledge with Photoshop, is the two things I'm about to do here. We can start by grabbing some text. So we'll hit the text icon, we'll click on the screen. Okay, and now that Photoshop is caught up, we can then paste this link in here, and then we'll change to the move tool. We'll grab this, and we'll drag it out to the center here. And for this, the text size is 60 pixels, and it's just kind of on the bottom. You can also bump it up to 80 if you'd like. So you can drag it right here, and then we'll change the opacity down here to 75% maybe, or even 50%, just so it kind of exists there, but it's not super intrusive. Next, we can click on the background here, make sure it's selected, come up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and this is how we're blurring the background. Now you'll see, because we have the background selected here, we're not blurring the text. So if I increase this blur radius all the way up and we just make this a massive blur, the text is still clear because it lives on the layer above the background. So that's the other thing. Make sure that the text is above background here and not below it. But then you can, move this down until it's just blurred enough to where it's, interesting but not distracting. So we'll set it to like 30. We'll hit OK. And then you can come up to File, Export, Quick Export as PNG. And then you can just export it here as like, exterior, and then just hit Save. So for this, we'll just call this demo.png. I'll hit Save. Apparently it already exists here. That's a little odd, but sure. And then you do that for all of them except for the home page. And the reason for that is we want the home page to be not blurred, because the home page doesn't have anything that is like the main focus over the background image except for the links. So it's okay to just be a clear picture. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to close Photoshop for now, and we'll come back to our application. So assuming you have all of those pictures set up, you can then grab all of your images. So we'll say this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And if you come into your Rails app, you do have a couple options. You do have like your images and your assets. You could also like put them in lib or whatever your heart desires, public, vendor. It all depends. For the sake of these tutorials, I like to just move these into public in the root level so that it's easy to access. So you see here, I just dragged it into the public folder and they'll start populating right here. And we have all of them already set up in our style sheets. So if I close this and come back over to the application and I refresh the home page, we now have the image here. So you can see in the bottom right here, let me full screen. We have this photo by Simon in the bottom right, and we have our links here, and we can navigate between them. And apparently this one is not working. We also have the catering page, the more info page, and the customer reviews page. Let's see why the menu page is not working. Gotcha. So if we come into the menu controller, the other thing we have to do in here is say @page is equal to menu. We can save this, and then we can refresh, and that fixes the menu issue. So now we have, and I might have blurred these background images a little bit too much now that I'm looking at it, but we have a working system here for the images, and we have some basic styling. And you can see here, if we resize, it forces the main restaurant front page to still be clearly in view and distinguishable, which satisfies our requirements of making sure that the people can recognize the restaurant. Because if you just set this to like be the full size and you just crop it off, you might miss off the address from the picture if they decide to do that or whatever. But that is the basic styling completed now. Let's go ahead and let's move on to the next step. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is inside of our app, views, layouts, application.html.erb, inside the body, but before everything else, let's just do a cache do. And then we'll just say end. Refresh the page, make sure that didn't break everything, which it looks like it didn't. And you can see here things are a little bit snappier now, so that's pretty cool. Hey everyone, so I'm just editing this video real quick, and apparently my microphone died with like 10 seconds left in the clip. So all I was going to say here is we finished doing the caching, and I'm going to see you in the outro. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode. I hope this helped. If it did help, remember to like it, and if it didn't help, remember to dislike it so it ranks lower in the algorithm, because we don't want to subject other people to it if it didn't help. Next time we're going to set up the categories and the search functionality, and then once we do that, the episode after that is when we'll start adding in the shopping cart, ordering system, Stripe, and all that. And then we'll move on to deploying to production, and I'll hopefully have some more info for that as we move forward. I'm trying to get this video out tonight so I can move on to the categories and the searching, so we can get all of this done, and wrapped up hopefully by the end of the week. And then next week I'm going to take a nice vacation where I make an easier application. But that's going to do it for me. Remember, if you like this series, you can subscribe, or you can do Patreon stuff. I'll have a link down in the whatever it's called. Yeah, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you in part 4.